Website query next. Deepak Vadiala says that he plans to buy a flat in Hyderabad. Now it's a 1,000 square feet flat, cost less than 1 crore rupees. The builder is also charging service tax at 4.5% for him. He wants to know if this rate is correct. He also asks what basis should the service tax be calculated on, only the work order or the sale agreement value. He also wants to know the difference between service tax and VAT. Now, this is a very interesting query, and because especially in Hyderabad, where he writes from, buyers actually sign two contracts. So it's a works contract and a sale deed,
Right.
or an apartment deed, so to say. So how do you calculate service tax?
So in this case, as I said earlier in the show, that the rate depends upon what the value of the flat is and what the square feet is. In this case, the value of the flat is less than 1 crores and the square feet is also less than 2,000. Therefore, he should be eligible to get the lower service tax rate, that is the 3.75 and not the 4.5 as what he states over here. The second part of the query is what should be at what price should it be calculated? It should be calculated on the total purchase price. The 3.75 should be applicable on the total purchase price. With respect to the third query, what is the difference between service tax and VAT? Now, service tax is charged when you are receiving certain services. When somebody is providing you services and you are receiving them, there is a service tax component. VAT is charged on movable goods. When one movable good is given to you, there is a VAT element on it. In your case, since this is a ready flat, there should neither be service. If it is a ready flat, there should neither be service tax or VAT, because VAT is not applicable on immovable property. However, VAT laws are defined from state to state because it's a state levy. So we will look at state law specifically, but generally VAT should not be applicable on immovable property.
You know, Ashish, he's not clarified whether this is ready property or under construction property, unfortunately. So we can't give him an answer on that. But yes, you will qualify for the lower end of the service tax bracket, which is 3.75%. So if the developer is asking you to pay 4.5%, then obviously there is something wrong over there, and you should probably go back and talk to the developer and ask him what is the case. The other thing that he wanted to know is the difference between the work order and the sale agreement. Like we discussed earlier, Hyderabad, you signed two agreements. So what is the service tax actually calculated on?
So the service tax will be calculated on the total purchase price that you are going to pay to the builder. The VAT, however, will be calculated. Maybe it is a under construction property. In that case, you will only pay VAT on the cost of the materials and the cost of any furniture or fixture that is being set up by you in your flat. That is the amount on which you will be paying VAT, and not on the price of the property or price of the flat that you are actually getting. That is the distinction.
When you say that on the total property consideration, does this mean the sale agreement value or the works contract?
Because the sale agreement value.
I mean, if you go by what service tax means, and you did explain it earlier in the show, that service tax is essentially tax that you're paying for any services that have been rendered to you.
Right.
So in this particular, I mean, when you're talking about real estate, it is essentially the act of building that property. And we are assuming that it's an under construction project over here.
Right.
So when you are signing a separate work order, why would I then have to pay service tax on the sale agreement?
So we'll have to look at what the works contract is for. If the works contract is for only carrying out work under your flat and constructing the flat, then the service tax component should be applicable only on the works contract amount. However, if there is no distinction as such between the works contract or the sale deed and the price is cumulative, then the total purchase price is what should be taken into account.
So right, so that is something that you will need to really check. Deepak, you will have to go through your agreement in detail and see if there are two different amounts that are specified, one for the works contract and one for the sale agreement, in which case theoretically you only pay service tax on the works contract because you're paying tax on the services rendered and not on the sale agreement. So I'm hoping that is a lower amount and you end up paying lesser tax over there. Before we move on to the next question, Ashish, I wanted to bring you in on that recent Delhi High Court judgment. Now, a lot of people have been calling us and asking us whether they should just stop paying service tax after that particular judgment, because the Delhi High Court order clearly said that the tax department has not got its math right. The calculation is all wrong because they are asking you to pay tax on the entire value of the property when that in fact includes much, much more than mere cost of construction. So what should people do? People who are buying their homes at this point in time, should they pay it? Is it even applicable to cities outside of Delhi?
So, my suggestion would be to pay it at the moment. As you said, whether it would be applicable to cities outside Delhi, there is a sub judice over here that becomes applicable. And therefore, while we do not have a clear judgment from the Supreme Court, it would make sense to pay this amount. I agree that the 75% and the 70% abatement is a very strange number that the government has come out with. But at the moment, the law stands as it stands, and therefore we must end up paying it. If the Supreme Court comes out with something, it is only then can we consider it to be law of the land.
So essentially, home buyers need to wait for somebody to go in appeal to the Supreme Court, for the Supreme Court to take it up and actually come out and come up with an order on it. Also, the Delhi High Court order very clearly says that it's up to the government to legislate and make the necessary changes. So that's again something that you need to really look out for and wait for. From our end, we can promise you this on Magic Bricks Now. If there is any development in this regard, we will definitely let you know about this. However, for the time being, you should pay that service tax so that you don't end up paying a very, very hefty penalty later on. Also, can I pay the service tax under protest? This is something that I've been reading somewhere, that we can also do that.
Sure, I mean, it does not debar me from paying it under protest, but we must also consider the consequences before we do something like that, because if it comes under scrutiny, then you should be answerable and you should have a fair argument to make. It should not be the case that the Supreme Court, does not uphold the judgment of the Delhi High Court, wherein whatever you are trying to do over here will not work out very well.
Okay. So the safe thing to do is pay off that service tax, and well, if the Supreme Court rules in your favor, in the sense that upholds the High Court judgment, then that's a loss that you've made. That's all we can say.
You can watch live TV on our website mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/magicbricksnow. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magic Bricks Now. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/magicbricksnow.